Our next lesson in biology is called Concept of Species. Let's go ahead and take out your biology notes. Let's go ahead and write today's dates. This is called Concept of Species. Let's look at our goals for this lesson. Our goals for this lesson are to differentiate between the two meanings of species and to discuss the problems that taxonomy faces today. Let's look at our vocabulary words. I'm going to say a definition and then say the word. I want you to repeat the word after me. Okay, the form or appearance of an organism, the collection of physical characteristics and the structure which make up an organism. A basis for species definition is morphology. Say morphology. Okay, the separation of populations of organisms by some type of barrier to produce variations of species. No reproduction or exchange of genes occurs between the separated groups. A basis for species definition is reproductive isolation. Say reproductive isolation. Okay, with bias, thoughts or interpretations based on the feelings and personal evaluations of the scientist is subjective. Say subjective. Alright. Okay, concept of species. Species, the basic rank of the taxa, have been defined many ways by many people. Okay, like life, the species is difficult to define precisely. Therefore, it's not always agreed upon by all scientists. There are two meanings of species that are relevant to science today. One has to do with reproductive isolation, which means that the organisms are of the same species if they can interbreed and reproduce for more than one generation. If they cannot produce young, they belong to different species and are isolated from each other. Okay, so one meaning of species. Okay, species. I'll circle it. One meaning. Organisms are of the same species if they can interbreed and reproduce for more than one generation. Okay. They're of the same species if they can interbreed and reproduce for more than one generation. Okay, species has two definitions. Like we said, scientists don't always agree. One of the definitions says that they're the same species if they can interbreed and reproduce for more than one generation. The second meaning of species has to do with morphology, or the way a plant or animal looks or grows. Classification can depend on anything from the shape of leaves or wings to the color of flowers or fur. Okay? The two meanings of species are related in the sense that the genetics of any living thing contain the genetic code which determines how that organism will both look and reproduce. Okay, so the second one says that it's the same species if they are similar in looks or they grow the same way. Okay. The two meanings of species are related in the sense that the genetics of any living thing contain the genetic code which determines how the organism will look and reproduce. Organisms in the same species share many similarities in morphology. Therefore, when determining the taxon based upon morphology, a scientist is relying on genetic similarities. Okay? We said that species has two definitions. The first definition says that it's the same species if they can interbreed and reproduce for more than one generation. The second one says they're the same species if they are similar in looks or they grow the same way. Okay, species is the smallest unit in taxonomy. However, variations may occur within a species. These smaller groupings within a species are called varieties, races, breeds, or subspecies. Varieties of some species may look different in some way, but are capable of interbreeding to produce offspring that are also capable of producing offspring. This is evident in observing the many varieties of dogs. All dogs are grouped in the same genus and species, Canis familiaris. Many other examples of subspecies variations may be found among plants and animals. Varieties are characterized by external physical features such as size, color, and general shape. Okay. There are some variations in a species. Okay, size, color, shape. Okay, just because you have a brown dog and a black dog, they're still both dogs. They're still both the same species. Okay? With these definitions, we may better understand the case of the mule. The mule is a taxonomic puzzle. It's the offspring of a horse and a donkey. Horses and donkeys do look somewhat alike, but are they in the same species? This question was asked by taxonomists. Inclusion of reproductive isolation if the definition of species made the key to the answer. Horses and donkeys are not members of the same species, nor are they variations of a species. They are in two separate species. Because mules cannot produce mule offspring, if we use the other definition of species, we might arrive at a different answer. Okay? And what it's saying is they can't reproduce for more than one generation. Mules are sterile. Okay? The only way to get a mule is to breed a horse and a donkey. Okay? So it's not considered to be a species. Alright. But if you go by this definition, they're similar in the way they look, they're similar in the way they grow. So by this definition, they would be a species. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about problems in classifying. Should I write mule on here? I'm trying to think. Are mules a species? I'm not going to make you write the answer. I'm just going to put that there so you can remember what the issue was. Okay, now let's talk about problems in classifying. taxonomy is a more subjective science than chemistry or physics. This explains why classification of organisms may vary from one taxonomist to the next, especially as new information is acquired and interpretations change. Even the information gathered depends to a large extent on the taxonomist's interpretation. Many classifying systems exist in the literature of science today, but no one best system has emerged. New classification systems and taxa, particularly in flowering plants, are needed. Criticizing these systems is easy, but designing a new system that really works is difficult. Problems in developing a new and better system include the complexity of classifying, the limitations of knowledge, limitations of personal experience, and the lack of first-hand information. Even with all the known and cataloged fossils, as well as information on living organisms, at times our knowledge falls short of making conclusive decisions in classifying. Only with more research in taxonomy will taxonomy become more precise as a science. Studies of pollen structure, biochemistry, and ecology are some of the more recent research aids for gathering information to find better classification systems. So some of our problems include complexity of classifying. Okay, the complexity of classifying is a problem or a limit. Limitations of knowledge. And limitations of personal experience. Limitations of personal experience. And the lack of first-hand information. These all create problems in classifying. As we look to the future, we should expect to see a greater use of computers in analyzing similarities and differences by mathematics and statistics. The use of computer analysts, for example, has proven very useful in helping to classify human remains. Many years of rigorous comparisons of primates, such as the popularized Lucy-type fossils, Australopithecus africanus, has indicated that they are not related to any chain of human ancestry. Computerized statistical analysis helps to make interpretations less subjective. Okay? So we said that species do have variations. They can vary in size, color, and shape. And we ask, are mules a species? Okay, and we talked about problems in classifying. The complexity of classifying creates a problem. Limitations of knowledge creates a problem. Limitations of personal experience and lack of first-hand info. Okay, go ahead and let me see your notes. Study your notes and go ahead and answer the questions.